Most gardeners still leave soil bare over winter, then act surprised when spring beds are compacted, nutrient-leached and crawling with early weeds. Bare soil isn't resting, it's degrading. Rain knocks structure apart, wind strips organic matter, and microbial life crashes when there's nothing living above ground to support it. That's exactly why the old clean bed for winter advice quietly sabotages long-term soil health. If you're serious about consistent harvests and resilient soil, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel now, because this is where we talk about methods that actually hold up across seasons, not just quick seasonal fixes. What I call the living lattice is simply a strategic mix of cold-hardy cover crops working together. Instead of planting a single cover crop like rye alone, a lattice combines deep roots, surface canopy, nitrogen fixation, and soil-binding fibers into one system. My most reliable winter blend has been winter rye, hairy vetch, and crimson clover at roughly a 2:1:1 seed ratio by volume. The rye establishes structure, the vetch fixes nitrogen and climbs, and the clover fills gaps low to the soil. That interwoven growth forms a living net that protects soil better than any mulch alone. This approach consistently outperforms single-species cover crops in harsh conditions. I've tested straight rye against the mixed lattice in raised beds exposed to freezing winds. The rye survived, but the mixed planting preserved noticeably better soil crumb structure by spring. Microbial respiration tests also bounced back faster where legumes were included. Diversity above ground usually means resilience below ground. Timing matters more than most gardeners realize. For cold climates, seeding about 4 to 6 weeks before first frost gives roots enough establishment time. In raised beds, I broadcast seed onto loosened soil, rake lightly, then water deeply once. After that, natural precipitation usually handles the rest. Seeding too late produces weak stands that don't protect soil effectively. Seeding too early can lead to excessive growth that collapses under snow weight. Raised beds benefit even more than in-ground plots. Raised beds, tend to lose nutrients faster because of drainage and exposure. But the living lattice, well, it really slows that loss dramatically. In one bed that previously needed quite heavy compost additions each spring, winter cover cropping actually reduced the amount of added compost by about 1/3, and there was no yield loss at all. Leafy greens planted after a winter lattice, interestingly, often show much stronger early growth compared to beds that are left bare or just mulched alone. The root architecture is, honestly, where the real protection happens. Rye drives its roots deep, often 30 to 60 centimeters, depending on the soil depth. Vetch threads between those roots, fixing nitrogen along the way. And clover, well, it fills the shallow zones. Together they stabilize soil layers through freeze-thaw cycles that normally cause compaction. You're essentially building a biological rebar system underground. People worry about spring termination, but it's manageable. Cutting or crimping the cover crop about 2 to 3 weeks before planting works reliably. I usually cut at soil level, leave residue as mulch, and plant transplants directly through it. For direct seeding crops, allowing another week of breakdown improves success. That residue suppresses early weeds better than most synthetic mulches I've tested. Hydroponic growers can still apply the principle indirectly. You obviously don't grow cover crops in hydro reservoirs, but you can grow lattice cover crops in soil beds specifically to produce biomass for teas and organic amendments. Compost teas made from mixed cover crop residues tend to contain broader microbial diversity than single-source compost. I've used filtered cover crop compost extracts in hydroponic herb systems with noticeable improvements in root density and nutrient stability. There's also a moisture regulation advantage people often underestimate. Winter precipitation, you see, often just runs off bare soil, but a living lattice actually slows that runoff, which really improves infiltration. Come spring, those beds hold moisture longer, but without becoming waterlogged. That translates directly into, well, fewer irrigation cycles during early planting. Common advice still leans, perhaps a bit too heavily, on straw mulch alone. Straw does protect the soil surface, but it doesn't actively build structure underneath. Living roots do. Ideally, you want to combine both approaches, grow the lattice and then let it become its own mulch after termination. That layered protection, actually mimics natural grassland systems remarkably well. Nitrogen management is where, honestly, mixed cover crops really shine. Straight rye can temporarily tie up nitrogen during decomposition, but adding legumes balances that effect. In my trials, spring nitrogen availability stayed more stable in mixed plantings compared to grass-only covers. That reduces the need for early fertilizer corrections. Winter survival varies, but redundancy is the safety net. Some seasons clover dominates, and in other seasons rye takes over, depending on temperature swings. The point isn't uniform growth, it's continuous coverage. One species compensates when another struggles. That's the essence of the lattice idea. So, soil biology clearly benefits from having year-round living roots. You see, microbes really do depend on root exudates, and without living plants, well, populations tend to decline. The lattice actually keeps that biological exchange active for longer, even in cold conditions where growth slows down but doesn't stop entirely. That kind of continuity, speeds up spring soil recovery quite noticeably. Urban and small-scale gardeners, in particular, often see the biggest payoff. With limited space, it's really important to keep soil health at its best. Continuous cover cropping, helps prevent those boom and bust fertility cycles that are all too common in intensive raised beds. Plus, it also cuts down on pest overwintering habitats, especially when compared to messy, unmanaged residues. Of course, there are trade-offs here, and it's worth being honest about them. Cover crops do require a bit of planning, seed sourcing, and a good awareness of seasonal timing. If you tend to rely heavily on planting early in the spring, then your termination timing really has to be spot on. Still, the long-term soil stability almost always outweighs those logistical challenges. Most experienced growers who adopt winter cover cropping, well, they don't go back. The deeper takeaway is simple but powerful. Soil shouldn't sit idle. Natural ecosystems maintain living cover almost constantly. Replicating that pattern improves resilience, fertility, and productivity without constant external inputs. The living lattice approach just refines that principle intentionally. If you want soil that survives harsh winters, supports stronger crops and reduces your reliance on fertilizers and heavy amendments, this mixed cover crop system is, honestly, one of the most reliable tools available. And if practical, experience-driven growing knowledge like this helps you produce better food season after season, well, subscribe to the Farm Logic channel and share this video with another serious grower. Better harvests start with better soil habits, and the more growers who adopt them, the stronger our food systems become. farm logic.